Welcome everyone to the Founder Scoop. My name is Jacob Lee, and today I have with me a special guest. This is Shawn Finnegan. Thank you for joining me.
Honored to be here.
So,
Thanks for having me.
Shawn, can you kind of just give me like a little bit of background? Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm actually one of the mentors at iHub, which is a great experience. One of the greatest things I love about coming here is seeing these young founders, and it gives you the fire and just seeing the fire in their gut. Like many times they know exactly what they have to do to cover their nut, and they're scrapping and they're trying to get it. And I always leave feeling inspired, like getting some of that fire back in my gut as well. So I have a background in entrepreneurship, do multiple things. One of my businesses is called Tax Hive. I'm an investor in Tax Hive, and we started the business with Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank.
Oh, nice.
And so he's
That's a
a
good
partner.
connection to have.
Yeah, he's an amazing partner. We put him all over social media, onboard a bunch of clients every week, and he's fantastic. And then I'm part of Crumbl Cookies, and then we're just opening up some swigs. Our first swig in 2 weeks
That's
in
awesome.
North Carolina.
Cool. So you're into franchises
Yes.
and taxes.
Yes.
And is the Tax Hive, is that like a tax consultation? What does that actually do?
Yeah, so we do tax filing and tax planning and bookkeeping. So most, especially young entrepreneurs, they don't do any planning for taxes at all. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and they put it at the back of their mind, and they think, oh, hey, tax time, that's when I'll hit it. And then you go and you try to pray for a miracle and hope they can go back and fix things. They can't. So we help them with tax planning. And most people are really frustrated with their accountant, but they're actually hired their accountant. The accountant's like the equivalent of a cash register person that is just running your items. They're just filing. So they don't do any actual planning. And so we bring that to the table in addition to filing as well. So we actually help entrepreneurs start stacking up deductions to offset their income,
Oh, that's awesome.
right?
Really cool.
Yeah.
Did you have a background in that, or what got you into
I definitely didn't. My least favorite classes in college were accounting. I think I was probably a D average.
Nice.
So,
I just took
yeah.
my accounting classes, and it's very similar results.
Yeah. So I had the experience of being an entrepreneur and paying a lot of taxes and the frustrations. And so I come at it from the position of an entrepreneur and a business owner that's been through it. And when you're a business owner and you start finding success, then you have to start paying, it is painful. And you get a lot of bad advice around that. It's like, hey, it's a good thing. You made a lot of money. Hey, it's a good thing that you're paying that much tax. That's horrible advice. No, the advice should be, hey, congratulations, you're making a lot of money. Use the tax code to offset that income. Keep the money in your pocket, grow your business with it, and then build your wealth, right?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So something I really wanted to talk about with you today is just what it's like being a mentor and how you find good mentors.
Yeah, so I think, so early on, I started my first business in 2009. It was a recession, one of the biggest recessions of our age. I wish someone would have shaken me and like, don't start a business because it was painful.
Yeah.
And I went out and raised money. So I didn't have a job at the time. I was like literally doing similar to what you have here, which is the iHub. Many times a lot of people are married here and they're going to their spouse. They're like, hey, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to go, as Elon Musk says, leap out in the abyss and then chew glass for a while, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was me in 2009. And I had a spreadsheet in front of me. I did all my projections like everyone here does. And the projections looked pretty good. And it looked like I would become a millionaire. So I was pretty stoked about it. And I decided to raise funds at that point. And so for the first time in my life, I had to go meet with angel investors to raise money. And over the next maybe 5-6 months, I give many presentations on my business, which is a live event business. And I raised 1.5 million from investors.
Wow, that's huge. Especially in a recession too.
Recession,
Wow.
got a lot of no's. So I had 23 say yes, but probably met with about 70 and had a bunch say no. But 23 of them gave me 1.5. And that was a very happy day because it was like, hey, I made it, I came from a dad who was actually a bookstore manager here locally for 40 years with 5 kids. So I didn't come from, like, I wasn't going to go to my dad and say, hey, cut me a check for my business, 1.5, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't come from that position. And so
what made you want to be an entrepreneur then?
it's just, it's like the fire in your gut that you have here at iHub, right?
Yeah, yeah.
it's like you see other people and you get inspired. Like from a young kid, I didn't want to be an astronaut. I didn't want to be anything other than a business person. So I was always inspired by empire builders, just like you see here. That's what I love here. They get inspired, and then they have this fire. You have some kind of percentage of your heart that's like, I want to do my own thing, and I'm going to make a leap. And that was my leap moment to do that and to raise 1.5. And in business, we work with Kevin O'Leary at Tax Hive, and one of his quotes is, "In business, poo-poo happens." And for me, poo-poo happened over the next 12 months where I actually lost the 1.5. So here it was, my friends and family thought I was amazing. My mom and dad were proud of me. I had a 1.5 sitting in my operating account at one point, and just trying to figure out the model, I lost the 1.5 over a year.
Oh gosh.
And during that time, I had this one buddy, his name was Kevin, and he kept coming up to me and be like, "Hey, I know you're busy, but there's these entrepreneurs that are doing this meetup. And I feel like if you met with them, you could actually do some business together with them. You should go do that." And I was like, "I'm never going to do that. Why would I do that? I'm knee deep in crocodiles, and I figured this out. I'm the CEO. I'm like running this thing. Why would I spend time to do that?" And multiple times I was told that. And so I made many, many mistakes over that year. And my biggest mistake, as I really analyzed it, was not building relationships in business. So I got it down to where on a Thursday night I had $2,000 in the bank, and I was $1,000 short on payroll. Very painful night. I didn't sleep a wink. The next day, it meant that people who had faith and confidence in me, I had to tell them that I couldn't pay them, and I didn't have $1,000 in the world. I had leveraged my house and my car. This is real painful.
Yeah.
So the problem is I had a failing business, but the pain was so much different. It was so much deeper. And so the next day I woke up, I'm praying for a miracle, literally praying to God for a miracle. And a miracle doesn't come. There's no deposit. I go to lunch and I'm like, have I overturned every rock? I get a call from my controller. She's like, "Hey, Shawn, I found it was like $3,000 petty cash in the safe. What do you want me to do with it?" And I drove back, picked up the cash, went over to the bank and deposited it and made payroll by $1,500. And that moment I said, okay, I'm going to do something different. And I started analyzing all the operational, marketing, and sales problems I had. And I came to the conclusion that not building relationships in business was my biggest mistake. And so to answer your question, I actually reached out to some mentors at that moment. And I looked at my phone and my contacts and I said, who has experience, who's been successful, who has great contacts that I can reach out to? And I literally took out my phone and I texted them my best contacts. And I said, "Hey, I need to meet with you." And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Let's get it done in 2 weeks. You want to meet in 2 weeks?" And I was like, "No, I want to come over there this afternoon." And they're like, "Okay." So I went over there that afternoon. I waited for them. And then I sat down. And as part of looking for the right mentors, you have to be real. You have to be authentic. You have to tell exactly how it is. You don't need to sugarcoat things with mentors ever. You shouldn't sugarcoat anything, or I hate the phrase, fake it till you make it. Never fake. Just be real with people and you'll find that you'll get the best depth in the response, right? So I met with them and I told them my problem, and ultimately they became my partners. A couple of mentors of mine became my partners, and then they brought all their relationships to the table, and then we went on a run, and I was able to pay off the investors 1.5 plus interest over the next 12 months.
That's incredible.
Only because of mentors. So when you ask like the mentors here, I just see that I think the greatest way to learn and to really expand and grow your business is to work with someone who's actually been there, done that, and has been through the pitfalls and can point out the problems and really help you. That's why I love the whole program here.
I think that's really cool experience that you shared, just because you got to a place where you were humble enough to ask for that help. And so it's cool to be a part of iHub, where mentorship is so encouraged.
Yeah.
And it's a part of what you do.
Yeah. Outside of iHub, when you're starting your own business, you don't have this kind of access. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. I've been here, I think 4 times now, or 3 or 4 times on mentoring. But just you're here in this, literally it's a hub, and you're bringing in these industry leaders to sit down with them. That to me is more powerful than college. It's more powerful than a traditional school system to have an actual person who's got experience teach you.
So you mentioned that Kevin O'Leary has played a big role in your life. How did you get to meet with him?
Yeah, so we actually we met him like 9-10 years ago, and the whole mission was to present to him to get on live stages with us, and we would promote and sell tickets and get him on
So it was
stages.
part of your original idea, your first
Part of the
business.
original business, and so we reached out to his agent, and his agent said, "Hey, you have 30 minutes to meet with him in Toronto, and this is the middle of winter." And it was my job to go present to Kevin and pitch him in 30 minutes. So I was like really stressed out about this. I remember it was like 20 degrees below zero. It was freezing cold. I was staying at a Marriott 2 blocks over. I walked out early in the morning, make sure I was there on time. My brain was frozen and I felt like I couldn't even talk. You ever feel that way? It's like I felt like I was just frozen. So I went into a bank and I was like thinking, okay, these sharks, they get hit up on the hourly basis. If they're out in public, they get pitched all day long. I've been with Kevin a lot and the other sharks. It is, hey, like one time Kevin was speaking at Harvard. His computer stopped working, so we had to go to the mall to get it fixed. From the parking lot to the fix-it store, he got pitched, I counted around 30 times.
Holy
Kevin,
cow.
I got this business. So I was sitting in that bank and I was like, okay, these sharks get pitched all the time. How do I do something different? And what came to my mind was the Stephen R. Covey quote, which is first seek to understand and then to be understood. So I think a lot of people that pitch, they're like, hey, here's my ecosystem. Jacob, why don't you come over here to my ecosystem, right? As opposed to just trying to figure out what your ecosystem is and how I can help add value to what you do. It's a totally different way to think about things. So I sat down with Kevin. I said, hey, I follow all your stuff. I'm a huge fan. Tell me what does the future look like for you and where are you taking your brand? That answer was 20, 30 minutes. That was most of the time of him just being able to say, hey, this is it. And as he unfolded it, here's the ecosystem. I want to do this. I have a book coming out. He was really running for Prime Minister of Canada. He's got all this stuff. And as he's unfolding this, I'm like, oh, this is where I can fit in here. And we can sell his book on our stages. And you can see where you can start plugging in. And then to be understood was, hey, Kevin, this is how we can help you in your vision. Boom, 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 boom. And then it was a done deal. So that was like 9-10 years ago. Built an incredible relationship. COVID kicks in. We're not doing events. We go out and pitch him on this business of Tax Hive, which small businesses don't pay attention to. We want to solve it for that small business owner. And he said he's in, and he's been an incredible partner. So
That's awesome.
that's the story of Kevin.
That is so cool. I've learned in my life that the best way to connect with others is to do exactly that.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what it is that they want and then provide value.
Amen.
Like if you can do that, you will never have to worry about anything
Yeah.
because that's how you build connections.
That's it.
That's how you make money. Right? You got to figure out what it is that people want
Yeah.
and then provide that value.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that's the most common question I get. It's like, what do I do? Okay, live events can be very awkward. And so when it's an awkward experience, I see people kind of melt down or they rise up, right? The average person goes into a live event that's a networking event, and what they do is they look straight down at their phone. I've sat by the door and watched people come into the event, and they do one of these. They're just constantly looking at their phone because it's really, and this is a safety blanket, and then they come into the event, their head down. I mean, who wants to talk to me right now? I look very busy. I'm into this phone, right? No one's going to come up to you. So they end up going in the corner. They just kind of slowly bide their time away versus what you just said. Set an intention before you go into that room. You're walking through a portal, and on the other side of that portal is deep connections. And whatever that intention is, how do you want to show up? Set that intention. I never go into any event without setting a strong intention before that event. Or if you're going into a sales presentation or you're doing anything, you can do these micro intentions. What is the outcome I want to have, and how do I want to feel going into this? How am I going to show up right now? Set it strong, and then you show up. You put your head up, you stand up, you go right to the center of the room, not to the side. I go right up to the promoter I've never met before, and I shake the promoter's hand, and I stay right there. And the promoter is attracting other people, and that promoter end up saying, oh, hey, Shawn, meet Jacob. Jacob is running the Scoop podcast. You gotta talk to him. He's putting out great content. And I ended up getting the best intros ever. And so that's number one. Number two is most people don't follow through. You meet someone at an event, it's like the best connection. It's like, okay, this business and this business is such a good fit. We can work together. There's no follow through. So the riches are made in the follow through. Make the follow through appointment there so it's not awkward when you get home, and follow through on those. If you do that, then your word of mouth is going to go through the roof. Referrals will go through the roof, and everything else.
Are these lessons that you've learned through your business? Right? You do events all the time. Is that kind of how you learned this, or how did you get to this point where you understood those concepts?
Yeah, it comes back from that business where I figured out that relationships is the greatest way to scale, right? So relationships, I found, I remember after going through those painful moments, pulling up old Google images of some of the greatest empire builders, and what I found is they generally weren't taking pictures by themselves. Like, who was Steve Jobs next to? Steve Wozniak, right? Steve Jobs, one of his first tech positions was Atari, and he was a total hippie. He didn't wear shoes, didn't do deodorant, and he was crass. And he's like, he wanted to go out to India to see his spiritual leader. So he's like, I need to make some money. So he walks into Atari, and he's crass, and he's like, I could solve your problem. At the time, Atari has this box, and they have a massive problems where they can't get the chips to fit in the box. And he's like, I could solve that problem in 2 weeks. And they've been trying for 6 months. And the CEO comes out and meets with him. He's either crazy or he can actually get this thing. And they make him work the night shift because he can't be around people. Well, he'd come in the night and he'd take the box out to the back door and hand it to Wozniak. And Wozniak helped build the most amazing state-of-the-art chips that Atari used to fix their problem. Right. And I was like, I thought about all this experiences, and like every empire builder, there's no such thing as self-made. They do it together with a group. Right. And that's how I've been able to scale. And that's my experience too.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you've also invested in a lot of franchises like Crumbl and Swig. How have you applied the principle of like networking to those new opportunities?
There's a great book I always recommend. It's a book called Who Not How. And I actually see that as one of the biggest stumbling blocks for a lot of entrepreneurs here. The book is Dan Sullivan. He asks, basically, he says entrepreneurs ask the wrong question. How do I do that? It's like they've had a certain amount of success. They have competency. So they're like, how do I also do that? How do I also do taxes? How do I also do this? And so they end up piling all this stuff on their plate. And then they become a bottleneck and can't handle it. And they start just burning out, right? As opposed to ask yourself the right question, who is my connection that can make this thing work, right? I knew what I've learned early on is you can't be the who to multiple things. I was literally here 2 weeks ago, met with a mentor or someone who was getting mentored, one of the founders. And the founder said, this was a quote from him, I want to have success in multiple areas and multiple businesses at the same time. And so I started unpacking and finding out, well, he's the who, supposedly the who for all of those businesses. And as you really started spending time, he hasn't really gotten traction on any of them. And it's because of that one problem, is you cannot be everything to everyone. You have to have good partners. If you're going to have multiple different areas of success, you better have the most incredible partners there is. And that's how it is for me in Crumbl. I have an incredible partner, and he has an operator that does it. So I spend very little time in that business, right? Because I have an incredible who that is like, that's all. They wake up every day thinking about cookies, and they go to sleep thinking about cookies. And you have to have that. And my advice to the person that I met with last week was, okay, out of the three that you've identified, which one is the one that you feel like, I'm going to go hit this thing? And he chose one. And I said, I agree with that. Out of the three, that one to me. So can you just put those others on the shelf until you find a who, and focus on this one, and don't think about anything else, right? And that was the advice, right?
Yeah. How did this individual come to that realization that it was like that is the one thing that they should focus on, and then everything else needs to be outsourced to others?
Yeah, so I think, there's power in asking the right questions as a mentor, right? And a lot of people think like mentors, you're just coming in and presenting to people. No, I think probably 3/4 of the time you're actually seeking to understand in that mentor session. And the more real you can be on both sides, the better. But I think the role of a mentor is first understand exactly what they do. And then it's so, sometimes they get stuck and they're down here and it's like, they just need some perspective to help them with that. But as a mentor, you have to understand all that. And as you understand, you can see it pretty unfold pretty quick. Okay, this person is waking up every day and they see 3 different paths and they don't know which one to choose. And that's why they're not getting traction. It's that generally it's like a little stumbling block that's in the way, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of helped you decide to make the shift to become an investor in all these franchises? Like you started up this event business, that
Yeah.
was your thing, and
Yeah.
then now you're more into this investor side.
Yeah.
How did you make that shift?
Yeah. So primarily I work on Tax Hive. I'm the I'm part of the who process for that. But I know that, you are putting your time in, and at some point you make the decision. You got to make the decision of how am I going to scale outside of me? So when I'm sleeping at night, I have something that is building. And to me, that's why I love franchises. The Crumbl thing has been an incredible run. I mean, who would have thought these cookies could have done what they've done in revenue? It's pretty remarkable, like when you see what they've been able to accomplish. So what I love about franchises is the system and the process for what they do, and everything is the same across the board. And that's why I've always loved it. So outside of what I'm doing, I have this business that's scaling out here, which is the greatest thing ever. And because I have a who's operating so well and hundreds of employees out there, we're finding success from that. So I wouldn't have done it had we not had an incredible who, because I couldn't have done both.
That's awesome.
Right.
How have your mentors helped you during like your low points? Because you mentioned like in your first business, right? You lost, was that 1.5 million?
1.5 million.
That's got to be a super low point.
It's a very low point. Yeah.
Like, how did they help you get out of that rut, like mentally?
Yeah. So my first person I met with that became my partner. He was a mentor. He's a mentor still to this day with me. What he did is I said, "Hey, can I take you to lunch?" And he's very busy, but I took him to lunch and we went to a sushi place. And the sushi place had one of those where you can write on the they have the paper on the table, big sheet of paper. And I took out a pen and he said, "Okay, I want you to tell me everything that you're doing." And I just unloaded during that lunch. I unloaded everything and where I had all my pitfalls and all the problems and everything else. And then he's like, "Okay, have you thought about this?" And I was like, "No, I hadn't thought about that." And then I was like, wrote that down on the thing. And then he's like, "What about this?" And then he took over the page and he starts going, "Do this, boom, boom, boom." And he made a massive list of operations and things that I was doing wrong basically in my business. And I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I take this tablecloth with me to my office?" And I folded it up and I went back to my office and I put it up on my wall and I started executing every single thing on the list. And that totally transformed my business, right? Because he'd been through every pitfall and I was so far in the weeds, I couldn't see what I was doing wrong. But he gave me a list of things and I went right away and started executing. That's what helped transform the business.
Yeah, man, that's incredible that he had exactly the experience that you needed. What do you do if like you don't know someone who has the experience that you need mentorship for?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in your contacts. Like I always ask people to look at their phone, see how many contacts they have. It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's so many seeds that have been planted, right? And so if you're meeting with someone who doesn't know and they're not the right person, they probably have someone who is, right? And I think that's the second power of networking is referrals are amazing. And we devalue referrals in our business, but we say we're word of mouth and we love like building word of mouth businesses. Well, referrals should be your number one priority. Yeah. So if you find someone that doesn't know, it's like, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for." And then they'll be like, "Oh, I know so-and-so. They scaled this business. I get I guarantee as we sit here, I've gotten multiple texts on intros and everything else. I absolutely honor. It's the greatest compliment someone give you. I've had this relationship for 20 years. I feel so good about you, Jacob. I'm going to introduce this person to you. What should you do? You should honor that and follow through and make the riches in the follow through, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
What does a good follow through look like then?
So what I do, this is the secret sauce, is super simple. So I say at an event, or if it's I get a text referral, I say, thank you so much, Jacob. I really appreciate the intro. Hey, so-and-so, hey, Bill, and great to connect with you. How's your schedule look on Tuesday next week? I'd love to jump on the phone for a quick call. If it's something that's like really great, then I'll be like, hey, I would love to have you over at my office next week on Tuesday for lunch. Or how does Tuesday or Wednesday look? I never, ever, ever leave any intros without doing a follow-through appointment. Same with a live event. I'm like, hey, Jacob, based on what you're doing and what I'm doing, do you mind if we just grab a time now? Because I know if I leave here, I might get lost in the shuffle, and this is super important to me. It's 100% yes. They're like, yeah, let's do that. So there's a great book called Never Do Lunch Alone. I always fill up my lunches with the most important people, and I always follow through on ones that I don't. Don't do it with every single person. It's not like you want to fill up your schedule. Do what matters most first and fill up your schedule with those kind of appointments. But always follow through. It's the number one thing I see people miss in networking.
Yeah. How do you set up these lunch appointments too?
Literally at the event, if I meet someone, I'm like, I try to do it at my office so I can show them my operation and introduce them to members of my team, right? So at the event, I'm like, hey, how does your schedule work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? I literally did this the other day. I have a lunch today with a potential tax partner that could bring in millions of dollars of revenue today at lunch.
Yeah.
And I met him 2 weeks ago, and he's a really big deal. So it took me 2 weeks to get this appointment today. His name is Hassam, and he is an incredibly successful person, and I'm meeting with him in an hour. And what I did is I said, hey, I know you're busy. I know about you. I know about your business. I've done research. I know, but I would really like to host you at my office because I'd like to show you my operation and what we do, because I feel like there's a good fit on tax and what you're doing on the solar side. He has a big, massive solar company called Action Solar. And he's like, okay, I'll figure out the time. And I was like, what's the best way to follow up? And he's like, my assistant will do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to text you right now. Would you mind just texting me over your assistant? I didn't leave it to chance. Text me over your assistant's number. I will text her and I'll grab a time. He pulls out his phone, texts his assistant, texts me, and I followed up with the assistant, built a relationship there, and now I'm meeting at lunch today. That is so critical. Like I see all these iHub, and if they just built 4 or 5 new relationships, they could do millions in sales.
So how did you meet? What was his name? The guy that you're meeting with today?
Hassam. I think Haysam. It's Haysom. So I just met him at a networking event.
Networking event.
Yeah.
Do you do those a lot?
Yeah, I do 2 or 3 a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
cow.
like crazy how many networking things I do. I put on my own. It's called the X Room. I basically, at first, I was just going to everyone else's networking event, and then I came to the conclusion I want to build my own table, and I want to create my own community.
Yeah.
So I literally built what's called the X Room, and I did it with like, how do I get my friends that are bucked up, Jeff and Ryan Gardner? I was like, how do I get them to come to an event? And what will they do? And more importantly, what won't they do? And then I built my community. So I just finished X Room 11, and I get 300 people to show up at it that are local.
Yeah.
And I built that from scratch. So this next one is at Moxie. It's X12. So just built my own table.
That's cool. What is it like building a community?
So I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I just see them fizzle out pretty quick if you don't have a set structure on what you want to do. So let's say that you want to build a community with authors. You got to figure out what the author wants and, more importantly, what they don't want in that community. So number one, you have to curate. You have to get the right people in the room. If you start cutting corners and people are going to an author event, and there's an HR manager's there and it's diluted and you don't have the right curated group, then what happens? It's like fizzles out pretty quick. So my big thing was I want to have people in the arena come to this event. They have to be business owners. Doesn't matter what size of business owners, big, small. I want people in that arena to be in my event. That's number one. So anyone who comes to my event, you have to be a business owner. And I've had a lot of awkward conversations with my friends. They're like, hey, can I get in there? But they're a W-2. And I'm like, sorry, this isn't the event. You can come to my other thing that it's a lunch, but this one is curated specifically for business owners. So stay true to that. That's number one. If you don't do that, forget it. Number two is you got to figure out the timing. Authors are busy people, or business owners are super busy people. So I'm like, I can't do a weekly event. I can't imagine if I try to do a daily event with business owners, it'd be impossible.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, how often? And I met with several of them. It's like, hey, if you were to go to something, what would that look like? And it turns out I do it every quarter. So it's really, you have FOMO if you miss my event. So every quarter I do it. So if you miss one, you're not seeing the community for 6 months. Yeah. So people will change flights and they'll do it. And then I also don't do it at night. Weekends are secret. I do it for a lunch for 2 hours. And to me, it's the most pure networking. And I've never varied from that at all, that whole thing. That's why I'm up to X Room 12. I cap it at a certain number, and I always have a waiting list of people trying to get in, and it keeps growing. The first one was 25 people, and now it's up to, the community is around 500 people.
Wow.
And about 200 to 300, depending on how much room I have, will come to the events.
That's cool. Where do you see this going?
So I just got a hit up from friends in other markets that want to do a similar format, and I hope it goes, because I feel like the greatest way to scale is scale relationships. So I feel like, and they do events here.
Yeah.
So I spoke at iHub here, all about networking, and I made the people in the audience actually network on the spot, meet people in the room,
cool. Yeah.
pull out their phones, text people that are good potential customers or referring partners. So I feel like it's going to expand into multiple markets.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so out of all the things that you have said today, what is your last words? What was the most important thing you want our audience to take away from this?
So I've met with lots of people here and lots of young entrepreneurs, and the most common problem I've seen is it's the start that stops you. And a lot of times, even here, they've done so much analytics and they've done so much creative work, but they actually haven't brought in revenue yet, right?
Yeah.
And they've analyzed everything, like much more intelligent than me. Is like they're super intelligent. They're so smart, but they've just haven't made the step over to revenue. To me, it's like, just get the start in revenue. The book, The Secret, is where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? So if you start making money and money starts flowing and that's your focus and you start bringing in revenue to your business, that's what it is. I just see so many people, they overanalyze, especially intelligent people. They analyze, and then they're like, I'm like, my question is, well, what's keeping you from getting your start and getting your first customer? It's usually a list. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do that. No. I have a good buddy named Sam Taggart, and he does door-to-door training. And he tells people, go get Windex. If you're going to do clean windows, don't get all the nice gear. Just go get Windex and rags and go get your first customers. Get that cash flow coming in first. Don't put the cash flow off. Don't put your customers off. Get your start. So it's a start that always stops people, is what I've seen.
That's some phenomenal advice. Thanks, Shawn.
Awesome.
Where can people go to learn more about you?
So I'm all over. I mean, it's a rare name, Shawn Finnegan. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I love to connect and engage with entrepreneurs. So it's been an honor.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate the invite.